Well, I was struck by lightning.
I saw the back side, not here.
It was supposed to be another take, another shot in the harsh winds of Italy. But when lightning split the clouds and struck Jim Caviezel, time stopped. Eyewitnesses say the sky fell silent, like a divine breath being held. Smoke curled from his ears. Static danced across the crucifix. He had just cried out the words of Christ. And then, heaven answered. This wasn't the first strike. It wasn't even the second. Caviezel had already faced scourging accidents, torn flesh, pneumonia, and heart trauma. But lightning? 3 strikes on one film set, and each came at a moment of spiritual intensity. It echoed the biblical number of confirmation, 3. Just as Peter denied Christ 3 times. Just as the veil tore after 3 hours of darkness. But no one knew what this meant yet. Not even Jim. Could the portrayal of divine suffering unlock more than just emotion? Could it tear open the veil between 2 realms? And if so, what stepped through? After the lightning, the pain didn't stop. Makeup became medicine. Scars were not painted. They remained. Caviezel carried bruises from scourging scenes that weren't staged. One whip missed the hidden board and sliced real flesh. Blood stained the set. He collapsed under a cross, weighing 150 pounds, and bit his tongue so hard, blood poured from his mouth. The crew called for a cut. The cameras kept rolling, and the pain kept coming. But why did the injuries linger? Weeks later, some wounds refused to close. Doctors found no infection, no trauma logic, just lingering pain. Almost like the flesh remembered something the mind couldn't explain. Job spoke of wounds opened by God for a purpose. Paul bore a thorn that would not leave. Was Jim now carrying a mark not written by man, but permitted by heaven? Sleep became strange. Caviezel confessed to recurring dreams during filming. Not nightmares, not hallucinations, but divine encounters. In one, he stood beneath a darkened sky, holding a lamb. Blood dripped from its neck. A voice, not his own, spoke the words, "My suffering is the door." He awoke weeping. These dreams intensified after the lightning. Each vision came with clarity, scripture-laced symbols, and warnings of spiritual warfare. Could this be divine confirmation, or the weight of a role too heavy to bear? In Acts, visions were given to those chosen to speak. In Joel, it is promised the Spirit will be poured out on all flesh. But when a dream pierces deeper than memory, can it still be called imagination? Or is it prophecy waiting to be believed? Strange things happened to others too. Assistant director Gian Michelini was struck by lightning. Twice, once during pre-production, once during filming. Electronics failed without warning. Lights surged. Wind machines stopped during storm scenes, only to reactivate unpowered. The director, Mel Gibson, began to avoid the set during crucifixion scenes. A priest called to the set for confessions began staying overnight. Cast members described an invisible weight in the air, as if the spiritual realm was watching. One actor fainted during a scene of Christ's fall. Another claimed he saw fire around Caviezel's head. This wasn't filmmaking anymore. It was a mirror. And what it reflected wasn't just performance. It was warfare. Why 3 lightning strikes? Why 3 collapses? Why did the final bolt strike during the Sermon on the Mount scene? The same moment Jesus declared the Beatitudes. The number 3, biblically, is divine perfection. Jonah in the belly, Jesus in the tomb, the Trinity. But here, the repetition became haunting. Could the Spirit have marked the production with numbers as warnings? In Ezekiel, God sends symbols before judgment. In Revelation, patterns carry power. Every lightning strike was witnessed, every collapse documented. But was anyone listening? After the film's release, Hollywood didn't celebrate. Caviezel's phone stopped ringing. He had portrayed Christ. Now he was paying the price. Agents distanced themselves. Studios whispered of being too Catholic, too controversial. Even as The Passion became the highest-grossing R-rated film at the time, Caviezel disappeared from mainstream roles. But he didn't disappear from his calling. He began speaking about truth, about Christ, about trafficking, about sacrifice. Just like Christ's path, the role elevated him in spirit, but crushed him in worldly favor. As Jesus once warned, "They will hate you because of me." And Jim knew he wasn't hated for acting. He was hated for who he reflected. Years later, the dreams returned. In one, Caviezel stood at the foot of a staircase made of fire. Above it, a lamb, wounded, glowing. Below it, darkness clawed upward. He heard a voice say, "You have not yet descended." Since that dream, he began turning down roles. He felt Hollywood couldn't offer what heaven was preparing. His faith deepened, his activism sharpened, and his words, once restrained, became thunderous. He said, "I was changed. You cannot encounter suffering and not be claimed by it. Like Paul on the road to Damascus, like Moses after the mountain. He was marked, not by role, but by revelation." Caviezel and his wife adopted 3 children, all terminally ill. Why? Because he said, "Pain is not a curse, it's a calling." One child had a brain tumor, another, cancer. He chose the harder road, as Jesus once chose the cross instead of escape, as Abraham chose obedience over safety. These children became living symbols of the calling Caviezel embraced after the Passion. Each life a testimony of redemption. He didn't just act out the gospel, he began to live it. And that is when the miracles began. But those are stories yet untold. During the release of Sound of Freedom, another strange turn. Despite major pushback, boycotts, and smear campaigns, the film soared. Audiences wept. Testimonies poured in. Former critics became allies. And Caviezel? He said one thing: God is not done. He believes the Passion was not the end, but the beginning. He hinted at visions tied to the sequel, at symbols repeating, at fire still falling. He warned of spiritual attacks intensifying, of a church not ready. But more than that, he called for warriors, and he said the next battle will not be on camera, but in the spirit. There are places where the veil thins, where lightning becomes language, where wounds speak prophecy, where dreams cut deeper than scripts. Jim Caviezel walked that place. He portrayed Christ, and heaven responded. What struck him wasn't electricity, it was purpose. What scarred him wasn't a role, it was revelation. And now, he speaks. To this day, no one can explain what happened. Not doctors, not Hollywood, not skeptics, but those with eyes to see. They understand. The stones are stirring, the voices are waking, and the storm has not passed.